a massively uncertain situation in the coming weeks with, as I say, the UK set to leave the EU at the end of March. And if, of course, Theresa May wins, well, she could see off the Brexiteer challenge, certainly to her leadership. But, of course, those Brexiteers are still free to vote the deal down, along with the rest of the opposition in the British Parliament.
And Alistair, talk a little bit more about those Brexiteers and her critics within her party who brought about this vote of no confidence. Are there front runners, within them who could potentially replace her moving forward?
You know, I've got the list of the prominent contenders here, and it's slightly large print, but it runs into to 3 pages. I mean, the most prominent, and of course the darling of the grassroots, is Boris Johnson, but equally he was not seen as being a particularly successful foreign secretary, very gaffe-prone, and his critics say that he's largely been full of hot air on Brexit, full of slogans, but very short on the detail. Other prominent Brexiteers, well, we've got Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, the chairman of the European Research Group, Dominic Raab and David Davis, 2 former Brexit ministers who resigned over Theresa May's plans. Other prominent Brexiteers who so far have been loyal and stayed in the cabinet, loyal to Theresa May, Michael Gove, Penny Mordaunt, who people have been tipping to be the next one to resign, and the leader of the House, Andrea Leadsom. Now, they might be well placed to step into the breach, having a certain amount of credibility with Brexiteers and also having stayed loyal to the Prime Minister. Then there are other figures like Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary, and Jeremy Hunt, the Foreign Secretary. The list goes on. Of course, this highlights the dilemma for Brexiteers. They might have no confidence in Theresa May, but each one individually cannot guarantee that their choice would be the one to come through, nor, of course, what actually happens with Brexit itself.
In terms of if she does win this vote on a very narrow margin, does that essentially leave her as a lame duck Prime Minister, or will she still have that power to see Brexit through?
Well, I think that depends on your point of view. Obviously, if there are enough votes, more than 100 people are talking about, then that would be arguably seriously damaging to her. Equally, that the opposition is known. I mean, we know that there are dozens and dozens of Conservative MPs who are vehemently opposed to the Brexit deal. So where would it leave her after this? Well, of course, the math still isn't there, basically, to try to get the Brexit deal as it is through the House of Commons. And the repeated noises we have coming out of Brussels and indeed other governments is that the withdrawal agreement is the result of those 18 months of negotiations, and it is not ready to be opened and changed. That said, there could be some tinkering around the edges, but is that likely to then please the vehement opponents in the House of Commons? Unlikely. What is perhaps the Prime Minister does have on with her effectively is time, but that would be almost like holding a gun to people's heads going, you vote this now or else it will be no deal.
Yeah, such a complex situation with so many different challenges within it. Alistair Sanford, for now, thank you. Well, Euronews' political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is following the story from Westminster, and he joins us now live from there. Darren, bring us up to date on the latest on that vote, which closed a short while ago.
Yeah, indeed. Well, polling closed just under an hour ago, 8 p.m. Local time. We are expecting an announcement, Sam, in the next 10 minutes or so. We believe that there are a lot of journalists and increasingly a large number of MPs, members of Parliament, gathering inside a committee room in the Palace of Westminster to listen to that result. It'll be read out by Sir Graham Brady. He is the chairman of the 1922 committee. That is essentially the governing body of the Conservative Party. Now, what we do know is that Theresa May needs about 115 159 of her own backbenchers to back her to win that ballot. Now, there is an expectation here that she is likely to win. In fact, I've not met anyone who thinks she isn't going to win tonight, and I've spoken to lots and lots of MPs. The key figure people are watching out for is this figure of 200, whether she manages to surpass 200. If she does, of course it is still a blow. That means that over 100 of our parliamentary party do not agree with her and do not believe in her leadership, but it is not a fatal blow. It's not one that means that she cannot carry on, or indeed that it is massively damaging. But be in no doubt, of course, this vote is, by its very essence, damaging when a large section of your own party say they don't have confidence in you. I think where the concern for Downing Street comes from is that while lots and lots of MPs and cabinet ministers and ministers today have repeatedly said on the airways and on social media that they back Theresa May, ultimately it's a private ballot. MPs go into a polling booth in secrecy and decide whether they do want her to carry on as the Conservative leader. And there is concern that some of those people who make those public utterances may well do something privately. And that is why we heard Theresa May, first of all, make a plea earlier on when she addressed her own MPs that this was an issue of national importance, that now was not the time to change the Conservative leadership because it may well lead to a delay in Brexit or no Brexit at all. But also made this extraordinary step, telling MPs not once but twice that she would not be in charge of the Conservative Party at the next general election. Now that is scheduled to take place in 2022, so it's more than 3 years away. But the big point is that many would want to see her go sooner, and the fear is that there could be a snap election, which means that by default she would be their leader anyway.
OK, Darren McCaffrey for now, thank you. Let's return to our correspondent Vincent McAviney in Downing Street in London. And Vinny, what are you hearing?
Well, Sam, we're just 3 minutes away now from getting this result. It'll be announced in Committee Room 14 down in the House of Commons, where the MPs were voting secretly for 2 hours. And that is packed with MPs now, and journalists have been allowed in the room. And the Chief Whip, Julian Smith, whose job it was to get the votes today behind the Prime Minister, has just entered the room smiling. He's apparently looking pretty happy. And so everyone there is taking it as an indication that number 10 and the Whip's office think that they have this result in the bag. Now, whatever happens, the Prime Minister will be coming out at some point, we think, in the next 30 minutes to give a statement here outside number 10 Downing Street. If she has won, she will obviously be coming out to say that she is now carrying on with the task. She is off to Brussels in the morning for that EU Council meeting, where she will try to get further from the further concessions, possibly from the EU, possibly a better timetable of the backstop. But if she has lost, of course, well, then that is going to be a very different speech. She will then be a caretaker Prime Minister. But by all accounts, from all of the polling that we've heard today, unless there has been a lot of lying around Westminster, we think that she should win this by around 170, 180 votes from her MPs endorsing her. Now, as Darren was saying, it's obviously going to be a blow, but Theresa May has said even if she wins by 1 vote, she is going to carry on. These are very different political times, and the Prime Minister, in signalling that she will be going in 2022, before 2022, before that election, well, she's already called time on her political career. So I think any number of votes that gets her over the line tonight, that means that she can carry on and deliver Brexit, well, she'll be happy with that.
Vinny, we are seeing movement there at that room, in the committee room, and I think they are about to announce those results. So let's have a listen in.
Caption competition. Good evening, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the officers of the 1922 committee for their help, especially my two assistant returning officers, Dame Cheryl Gillen and Charles Walker. The result of the ballot held this evening is that the parliamentary party does have confidence. Yeah! does have confidence in Theresa May as leader of the Conservative Party. The number of votes cast in favour of having confidence in Theresa May was 200 and against was 117. Under the rules set out in the constitution of the Conservative Party, no further confidence vote can take place for at least 2 months.
So there we have it, the result there announced by Sir Graham Brady, confirming that the UK Prime Minister Theresa May does have the vote of confidence as leader of the Conservative Party. She has won that vote, 200 in favour, 117 against. Let's go straight to Downing Street and our correspondent Vincent McAviney. And Vincent, that is the result. She has won that vote of no confidence.
That's right. It was the result we were expecting, but not by that margin. A huge win. Let's just say those numbers again. For the Prime Minister, 200 against 117. She only needed 159 of her MPs to keep her in the job inside number 10 Downing Street there. And she has definitely surpassed that threshold by a good margin. And she is secure now in her job. Of course, she'll be out here in a couple of minutes, we think, to give a speech. She will be saying that she is carrying on, that she's going to that EU Council meeting tomorrow, that she's going to work to try to get more from Brussels over the next few weeks before she brings her withdrawal agreement back to the House of Commons on the latest date. That can be the 21st of January. She now needs to translate this victory into more support for the withdrawal agreement. She was facing as many as 130, 140 of her own MPs voting her down in that meaningful vote on Tuesday. She now needs to get some kind of time constraint on the Northern Irish backstop. We think she's trying to get a codicil of a year so that if they enter the backstop, it can only last a year after the transition period, and that will get everyone working towards getting a trade agreement between the UK and the European Union. But the Prime Minister tonight will be out here. She'll be celebrating staying in this job. But she, of course, has told her MPs that she will not be fighting the next general election. So she is coming out to say she will deliver Brexit. And then at some point after March 29th, 2019, she will be going. Now, it is quite a day here in Westminster. It is the result we were expecting, but there definitely has been some nerves because in past elections like this, people have overstated what the result will be. Because it's done in secret, MPs might have been lying, they might have been saying they do this in public, support the Prime Minister, but then behind the scenes wanting to try to topple her. But Theresa May survives this vote and she will carry on.
OK, Vincent McAviney there in Downing Street. We'll be straight back to you as soon as we can hear from the British Prime Minister. In the meantime, though, let's head back to Westminster and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's there. And Darren, just put into context for us how important this is for Theresa May to have reached that 200 vote threshold.
Well, I think it's enormously important in many regards. We were expecting, of course, Theresa May to win this ballot. That I don't think was in any doubt really at any stage today. What is significant, of course, is the margin of that result. Now, when we look at it, and we've been talking today about the figures, and I said that 200 was the one that we should be looking out for. Now, that is what she has achieved. 200 of her own MPs do have confidence in her as leader. 117 don't. So, yes, it is a victory for Theresa May, but be in no doubt, it is still not terribly comfortable for the Prime Minister. That is essentially a third of a party saying that they do not have confidence, more than a third of a party, in her leadership. It is pretty difficult. Margaret Thatcher, I think, in very different circumstances, 30 years ago, she resigned as Prime Minister, having received not a terribly dissimilar result. Now, there is no sign that Theresa May is going to that. She has insisted she will stay on. But as I say, this result is significant, not least of all that she's won, but the margin of victory, while it is comfortable, is not necessarily a great triumph for Theresa May. Let me bring in Matthew Parris. He's a former Conservative MP. He's now a columnist with the Times newspaper, someone who follows these results and politics very closely here in the UK. Matthew, I've just been talking through the results there. What is your initial impression of how comfortable this is for Theresa May?
Exactly the same as yours, Darren. I would say it's a plausible victory. It's a 2 cheers, not 3 cheers victory. It's persuasive. Had it been 199, it would have sounded an awful lot worse. She's very lucky to have got to 200. She will sleep relatively, I think, relieved tonight, but she will wake up tomorrow knowing that a third of her party don't even want her there, and with the same old problems over her treaty and Brexit.
And what would we're going to hear from the Prime Minister, I think, in the next 30 minutes or so. What would you expect to hear from her, given the result? Will it be any different in tone from what she'd said this morning?
She only has one tone, really, only one gear, only one mode, which is defiant, gritty, I carry on, and that's what it will be. She will claim that it's a vindication. She will claim she has most of the party behind her, and she'll say it's now time to put these things behind us and get on with the job. The problem is she can't get on with the job because she hasn't actually got a majority in Parliament, even if she has in her own party.
What was also significant today, clearly Downing Street were concerned because she addressed MPs and said that she is not going to lead the party into the next election. In some regards, she's already become a lame duck Prime Minister.
Yes, I don't think anyone really expected her to lead the party into the next election, but you're quite right that this had never been said. And ideally never should be said, because people then start to look at who will succeed you. But so great are her problems at the moment that I think any difficulties she may have as she moves towards 2022 are for tomorrow.
I'm going to make a claim here, I'm not entirely sure, but you were around when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. Are there any parallels to draw with the circumstances today? Of course, she resigned having won a vote of confidence.
Well, you were right to mention that, President, but you were also right to say that there are important differences. Margaret Thatcher withdrew having not done well enough on the first round to be sure that she could do well on the second round, or even win on the second round. There is no second round for Theresa May. She has now won. She would have carried on with a majority of 1, and she's in fact got about a 2/3 majority. She will be reasonably content with that.
And finally, just kind of looking forward to the future now. We've been saying this all day, the fundamentals for her have not changed, because we're not getting the impression that just because people voted for her to remain as leader means they're any more likely to vote for her withdrawal deal.
No, it doesn't. There is such a thing as momentum in politics. There is such a thing as herd in the Conservative Party, and there may be a little bit of a feeling that she's got the wind a bit behind her, and a few doubters may come over and support her deal, and one or two of the leavers even may decide that it's better than a second referendum or crashing out. But the fact is, she was a zombie Prime Minister before today, and she will be a zombie Prime Minister tomorrow as well, in that she can't govern the big thing she's trying to do. She can't get a majority for, and I don't think will.
And just very, very finally, you're someone who's campaigning, that's a campaigning, but you're arguing for a second referendum. Where does tonight's result leave us in terms of the likelihood of that?
A little bit closer. I don't think even now that it's the likelihood, but I think it's a distinct possibility. I think we are all, including her, being herded towards a conclusion which will become increasingly sharp as the 29th of March approaches, the conclusion that it's either crash out without a deal or a second referendum. The possibility of a halfway house deal with the European Union, I think, is no closer now than it was yesterday.
Great. Matthew Parris, thank you very much indeed. That's Matthew Parris. He is former Conservative MP and a columnist now with the Times newspaper here in London. Now, what happens next is after Theresa May makes that statement in Downing Street, what we expect in the next 30 minutes or so, she then has to travel to Brussels, of course, tomorrow. There is an EU Council summit tomorrow, and we know that it is going to be dominated by Brexit, and her mission of trying yet again to get more concessions from the EU on this Irish backstop will continue. The EU tonight have issued a statement in which they're saying, yet again, they're not willing to reopen the withdrawal agreement. However, they are willing at least to say that they do not want this backstop option. It is the last resort, and that it should be temporary. That clearly will not be enough for her backbenchers. And as I was saying to Matthew, it comes back to this fundamental point. Despite tonight's result, it doesn't change the real problems, the entrenched problems that Theresa May has over her Brexit deal.
OK, Darren McCaffrey, our political editor there in Westminster for now. Thank you. Well, let's return to Downing Street now. And Vincent McAviney is there for us. And Vinny, how much of a relief is this for the British Prime Minister?
Well, I think it will be a relief for the Prime Minister, because now it's all about hanging on and finishing the job for her. That's what she's been saying all day. She wants to deliver Brexit, and then she will go at some point before 2022. And she is expected to come out here on Downing Street in the next couple of minutes. You can see the mics already there. The lights have been put up. She will be making a statement where I think she'll be talking about what she's going to try and do tomorrow at the EU Council meeting in Brussels. But already, of course, political reaction is starting to come in. Jacob Rees-Mogg, who is one of the hard Brexiteers in Parliament, one of the leaders of the European Research Group, who put in a letter of no confidence, he has said that the Prime Minister should go and see the Queen immediately and resign, saying she clearly doesn't have the confidence of the House of Commons. She should make way for someone who does. Well, I don't think she's going to be getting in the Jag and heading up to Buckingham Palace anytime soon. Nigel Farage says Mrs May limps on to her next failure. The deal won't pass and the real crisis is close. And then Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, he says that tonight's vote makes no difference to people around the country. The Prime Minister has lost her majority in Parliament, her government is in chaos, and she is unable to deliver a Brexit deal that works for the country. He says that Labour is ready to govern for the whole country and deliver a deal. So that's some of the reaction that's coming in off this dramatic vote that's taken place tonight, with the Prime Minister getting 200 MPs to support her.
OK, Vincent McAviney there in Downing Street for now. Thank you. We'll be straight back to Downing Street as soon as the Prime Minister steps out of number 10 and makes it. Let's head back to Darren McCaffrey, our political editor. Darren.
Nearly 40 above what they expected.
You would recognise
that is a really bad result.
In this bubble of Westminster, where we can talk about the exact numbers, that we are missing the point. That in the country at large, there is very little sympathy for politicians, very little trust for politicians. And today's vote.
Well, we're hearing now from a very prominent Brexiteer, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Let's listen in.
Here against a party leader at a time when she probably needs the country to support her.
In the first half of what you said, Miss Maitlis, you were hitting the nail on the head, and then your language got really deeply excessive.
Tell me I'm wrong, because that's not just my language, it's the language of your own party members as well.
I think what the British people want is what they voted for. Somebody said to me the other day that he didn't vote for a deal, he voted to leave the European Union. And that's where the government has failed. Its deal doesn't mean leaving. We need to get back to leaving the European Union, and then we will restore trust.
Okay.
And what has been so corrosive is the failure to do what the Prime Minister promised. That is at the heart of undermining trust.
I repeat to you, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the ERG is now a busted flush. You have let down Brexiteers. You know which way she will take Brexit now, and it's not towards a no deal.
I'm afraid this is not about the ERG. That would be a vanity.
Tell me which way Brexit
it is about.
Goes now. Tell me which way you see it going.
Well, the legislation is in place for us to leave on the 29th of March. That has always been the case. Nobody would have put this vote if we thought the Prime Minister could be relied on to stick to what she said she would do, because she is consistently.
Now, are you?
That's what the legislation provides for. Not to get it requires the law to be changed. That's going to be very difficult to do.
Would be a no-deal Brexit, which she has ruled out.
No, she hasn't. She said no deal.
She's ruled out a no deal.
She said no deal is better than a bad deal. Is that another of...
She didn't say that in PMQs today. She made it very clear that she would not accept a no deal.
Are you saying the Prime Minister is breaking her promises?
Are
you saying that she's not sticking rigorously to the truth? I rely on the Prime Minister to be honest and upfront and upright, and when she says no deal is better than a bad deal, to mean it. And that's what we've legislated for.
I'm saying the most magnificent irony in this is that you, Jacob Rees-Mogg, have let down your fellow Brexiteers.
No,
You're going to end up with a worse Brexit than if you hadn't even sent in the letters.
Oh, that's certainly not not true because the Brexit we were getting in the withdrawal agreement was not a proper Brexit. Nothing is going to be worse than what we were being offered. That we need to get back to a real Brexit.
Well, that there is a prominent pro-Brexit MP there, Jacob Rees-Mogg, reaffirming that the focus should still be on leaving the EU following that decision, that Theresa May has won that confidence vote, in 200 in favour and 117 against in that vote of no confidence which took place within the Conservative Party a little earlier. So let's head straight back to Downing Street, and Vincent McAviney, our correspondent, has been there all evening. So, Vinny, we're expecting the Prime Minister to come out and make a statement very shortly.
Yeah, that's right, Sam. Any moment now, the Prime Minister will be coming out to make a short statement here after that result. So if I duck down and disappear, that's because we're going to tune in to what the Prime Minister has to say. Now, we were hearing there on the green the MP Jacob Rees-Mogg out already trying to spin this as a disaster for the Prime Minister, but she will be coming out, I think, once again defiant, because yes, this has been a blow to her, but it does mean that she can carry on. These are extraordinary political times, and her strategy has been to keep working hard and to look like she is the person that is delivering. And the Prime Minister will go on now. She'll carry on going to the EU Council meeting in Brussels tomorrow. She is trying to get some kind of legal text, we think a codicil, which would see the Northern Irish backstop the agreement by which there will be no hard border between the Republic and Northern Ireland or in the Irish Sea, trying to get that time limited. So if it does kick in after the transition period, it will only last for a year, and that is to stop the UK being endlessly caught endlessly caught in the backstop period. So she basically now will be saying that she's coming out to try to get that clarification before she brings it back to the House of Commons in a vote.
OK, Vincent McAviney, will be straight back to you as soon as the Prime Minister appears. For now, thank you. Let's head back to Darren McCaffrey, who's in Westminster. And Darren, we're expecting to hear from the Prime Minister very shortly. What can we expect her to say?
Yeah, as you say, we are expecting to hear from Theresa May shortly, but let's at least get the view of the opposition here in Britain. And we're joined by the Labour Party's Richard Bergen. What is your view of this result tonight? Theresa May has won. She's won pretty emphatically. She's won much better than Jeremy Corbyn did in the leadership challenge. Shouldn't Parliament now, in a sense, get round her deal?
Well, she needs to put her deal to Parliament. She needs to stop running scared of democracy. She pulled the vote last week. But look, nearly 40% of those who know her best, her own Conservative Party MPs, nearly 40% of them have today voted to say they have no confidence in her as Prime Minister. What kind of message does that send to those with whom she's trying to negotiate in the European Union? She's a lame duck negotiator, a negotiator whose credibility is reducing day by day. She's certainly much weaker at the end of today than she was at the beginning of the day, with nearly 40% of her own MPs voting against her. She can't command a majority in the House of Commons. She can barely command a majority of her own MPs. It's pretty disastrous.
But isn't also the truth is, can Labour get a better deal? The European Union has made it clear that this is the only deal on the table and it's the best deal.
Well, the former President of the European Commission, Romano Prodi, said only the other day that he believed the European Union would negotiate again. The reality is, all sorts of said in negotiations, people put on tough stances, but the key to this is, what credibility does the negotiating team have? This lame duck Prime Minister, even weaker now than before this vote, has virtually no negotiating credibility. Labour would be able to negotiate a better deal precisely because we do have negotiating credibility and we have a united party behind our deal.
Richard, thank you very much indeed. Richard Bergen there, who is a member of the shadow cabinet, the Labour opposition here, who clearly, of course, want a general election. They are campaigning to have this vote in Parliament because they think it will be voted down. They want a vote of no confidence in the government that will lead to a general election. Let's just see if we can listen in here to Cabinet Minister James Brokenshaw, who is currently talking to another broadcaster, but we'll try and listen to see what he's having to say in reaction to these votes.
That's what we want to do now.
And what was the mood like in that room when she spoke?
I think that the sense that I've gained is that there was a lot of emotion in the room. a lot of feeling was there. Indeed, I think from her too, and how, she's indicated her desire, her real intent to work with colleagues, to work with, people from across the party, to ensure that we get this right in relation to Brexit for the whole benefit of the country. She has been so motivated by what's in the public interest, what's in our national interest. And I know, having worked with her over so many years, how that sense of public service is really imbued into her, how she is determined to get on with that job, and how I think tonight she can do so off the back of this vote with that sense of, I think, that renewed sense of being able to move forward on Brexit and on a range of other issues too, and how I earnestly want to see her do that.
Mr Brookenshaw, Darren from Euronews, can I just say, a third of the parliamentary party, more than the third, did vote against her, did say they had no confidence. That's a pretty difficult blow for the Prime Minister.
I think it's important to recognise that in the vote tonight, she's actually gained a greater level of support than she did 2 years ago in the final round of the leadership
by
contest.
One vote.
But the point is that she has that support. I think she now has that ability to get on with what the country wants to see us do, which is delivering on Brexit and delivering on all of those other priorities on schools and hospitals, the health service, yes, and equally on homes too. That's what I think she can do, and how she'll do that by listening. She is listening to colleagues and wanting to ensure that on those issues of concern over the EU deal, that we are able to get that support from colleagues who do have issues, as well as from the DUP too.
But having the fundamentals of this not changed, she's going to go back to Brussels tomorrow. They have insisted again tonight the withdrawal agreement is not open to renegotiation. There is no sign they're going to give anything on the legal binding of the backstop. The fundamentals are that she would still lose this vote in Parliament on her deal if it was held tomorrow, potentially next week, potentially next month.
Well, the Prime Minister has decided to pause the vote to enable discussions to take place. Obviously, she did that yesterday, and unfortunately the vote today has prevented her from meeting Leo Varadkar, the Irish Taoiseach, to be able to talk directly in relation to this hugely sensitive issue on the Northern Ireland border. But no, she will go to the European Council tomorrow to underline the issues that we do have, the concerns that have been very firmly reflected by Conservative colleagues and, of course, the DUP too, and how she is determined to get a deal that works here and therefore works for our country as a whole. Because, frankly, it is that deal that we need. It is that ability for us to move forward, and how anything else just creates further uncertainty over whether Brexit will happen at all, or indeed whether there's a no deal. And so it is with that intent that the Prime Minister can now move forward. After today's vote, the uncertainty that has been created over this issue of confidence within the party is now addressed. That does not mean she's not going to stop listening. She absolutely is. We'll continue to work with colleagues to get this right for the benefit of the whole country.
Mr Brookenshaw, thank you very much indeed. James Brookenshaw, who's a Cabinet Minister there, joining us live on Euronews, stating, of course, that he believes that Theresa May has done quite well in this vote tonight, that essentially she has been strengthened by it, that she received, I think, one more vote than she did when she stood as leader, 2.5 years ago. But he does recognise that she does need to go back to Europe to try and get more progress on this issue of the withdrawal agreement and the Irish backstop, and arguing that actually this vote tonight has prevented her somewhat from doing that. But it is interesting that, we look around us, all these cabinet ministers have come out tonight essentially batting for the Prime Minister, but be in no doubt, this is still a very uncomfortable night for Theresa May. More than a third of her parliamentary party, more than a third of her colleagues, essentially stating they do no longer have confidence in her to lead the Conservative Party and to remain as Prime Minister.
OK, Darren McCaffrey there in Westminster, our political editor for now. Thank you. Just to bring to your attention the pictures we're seeing, obviously all camera lenses there on Downing Street, trained on number 10. We are expecting the British Prime Minister Theresa May to walk out at any moment within the next half an hour or so and make a statement following winning that confidence vote by 200 votes in favour of her and 117 votes against. Quite a significant margin and a big win for her, certainly in that no confidence vote. Let's speak more now to Alistair Sanford, our correspondent, who joins us here in the studio. And Alistair, she's managed to overcome this hurdle, hasn't she? But as we've been hearing, still so many divisions and so many challenges for her to get through now.
There's a release of, I think, relief. I mean, even before the vote was announced by Sir Graham Brady, we heard in the room there, a very relaxed atmosphere, which was a complete contradiction to the poisonous atmosphere that's been described with Tory against Tory in recent weeks. You've got some very experienced MPs saying they've been there for decades, like Nicholas Soames, Winston Churchill's grandson, saying this is toxic. I've never known anything like this. So yes, big release of energy, very dramatic moment. Theresa May has seen off the hard Brexiteers, effectively, who failed. They got eventually their 48 letters, but when push came to shove, this vote shows that they were unable to topple the Prime Minister, because there's no one credible alternative who could take over in these situations, and also no one credible plan. I mean, at last minute, David Davis, former Brexit minister, came up with an alternative that he thought would work with the EU. But at this stage, other MPs just decided that is not a goer. So the question is really what's going to happen next. There's confidence in the Prime Minister here, although, of course, as has been pointed out, 117 votes against is pretty significant. But does that mean confidence in the deal as it stands on the table? We've got the crucial meetings again, of course, in Brussels, but the EU 27 remaining very firm, really, that the withdrawal agreement is not really up for renegotiation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she is heading there tomorrow. What can she achieve in those meetings? I guess she'll be bolstered by this result tonight, won't she?
She'll be bolstered by this, yes. And as I say, she's sort of seen off the hard Brexiteers. It kind of makes the whole prospect of no deal more likely. But of course, what is the legal situation if the deal as it stands isn't voted through? The noises coming out of Brussels, as I understand it from here, are that there's really perhaps just tinkering at the edges. Vinny's been talking about possible changes to the backstop to make it time limited. On face value, that would appear to be slightly contradictory with the whole idea of it, which is that it is, however much no one wants it, still an insurance policy that would have to be in place if everything else fell through. So is she likely to come away with things with enough material there to make people change their minds? That remains to be seen. Of course, the Brexiteers have been seen off now in terms of challenging Theresa May, but of course they still have the power in the House of Commons to vote the deal down.
OK, Alistair Sanford there for now. Thank you. So the Chief of Staff we're hearing has just left number 10 Downing Street. Our cameras there are trained on that door. We are expecting the British Prime Minister to step out and make a statement following that victorious result for her. 200 votes. And there she is. Here comes Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, following that win. Let's listen in to what she has to say.
This has been a long and challenging day, but at the end of it, I'm pleased to have received the backing of my colleagues in tonight's ballot. Whilst I'm grateful for that support, a significant number of colleagues did cast a vote against me, and I've listened to what they said. Following this ballot, we now need to get on with the job of delivering Brexit for the British people and building a better future for this country. A Brexit that delivers on the vote that people gave, that brings back control of our money, our borders and our laws, that protects jobs, security and the union, that brings the country back together rather than entrenching division. That must start here in Westminster, with politicians on all sides coming together and acting in the national interest. For my part, I've heard what the House of Commons said about the Northern Ireland backstop. And when I go to the European Council tomorrow, I will be seeking legal and political assurances that will assuage the concerns that members of Parliament have on that issue. But while delivering Brexit is important, we also need to focus on the other issues that people feel are vital to them, that matter to them today, the issues that we came into politics to deal with. Building a stronger economy, delivering first-class public services, building the homes that families need. We owe it to the people who put us here to put their priorities first. So here is our renewed mission: delivering the Brexit that people voted for, bringing the country back together, and building a country that truly works for everyone.
But can you get your Brexit deal through?
So that the British Prime Minister Theresa May making that statement, saying that she's renewed the mission, a new start for her following that victorious vote, 200 in favour in that vote of confidence. Let's speak to our correspondent Vincent McAviney, who was listening to that live there outside Downing Street. And Vinny, what did you make of her statement?
Well, the Prime Minister has just returned into number 10 Downing Street with her aides there, and it was very much what we've come to expect from Prime Minister Theresa May. It was a little bit of the Maybot once again. She said that she was pleased to have received the backing of her MPs, but she acknowledged a significant number had voted against her. She said that she needs to now get on with the job to deliver Brexit, and said, as we expected she would, that she'll be going to the EU Council meeting tomorrow to try to get more clarity from them, more sort of set rules on the Irish backstop. She knows that if she brings her withdrawal agreement back to the House of Commons, as she has to do before January the 21st, there needs to be some movement, some clarity on that, so that MPs know the UK isn't going to be stuck permanently in some kind of limbo arrangement. And she also said that she was renewing her mission, that they had to focus on other issues. This is something the Prime Minister, we know, has been worried about, that she is only going to be seen as a Brexit Prime Minister. She came into Downing Street saying she wanted to be a Prime Minister for everyone. She said that she knew that there were parts of the country that hadn't been listened to, that there were people that felt ignored, and so that's why they voted for Brexit, and that she wanted to do more for those people. Now, the Prime Minister will be going in there tonight. She will be relieved, but she will have to get up tomorrow and try to deliver something, because she has time limited herself now. If she doesn't get through this meeting, any kind of clarity or concessions, it is still so unclear how she's going to command a majority in the House of Commons, and then we might be back in this situation in a couple of weeks' time, because if she fails to get the withdrawal agreement through, then the Labour Party, the opposition parties like the SNP, the DUP, they might band together and put down a motion of no confidence in the House of Commons, and then it will be up to MPs once again to vote on her fate, whether or not they kick her out. So she's got to have a pretty hard-working Christmas to try to bring back something that those MPs might support. Otherwise, we might be back here in a couple of weeks with Theresa May looking like she's going to be booted out of this place.
OK, Vincent McAviney there at Downing Street for now. Thank you. Well, let's head straight back to Westminster and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's there. And Darren, we heard there from the British Prime Minister how she's had a long and challenging day, but she's grateful for this result, and she has listened to those who voted against her.
Yeah, indeed. I have to say, listening to Theresa May just then, even though she did recognise that she does have to listen, given the fact that a third of the parliamentary party, a third of her own MPs, voted against her in a confidence motion, there will be much criticism that is a speech we've heard Theresa May make 6 months ago, a year ago, when she became Prime Minister 2.5 years ago. There will be criticism that she really isn't saying that very much new. But as Vinny was talking about there, the opposition parties and what they might well do next, well, let's speak to one of the opposition parties, the Scottish Nationalist Party, and Stephen Gethin, who is their Foreign Affairs spokesperson. Sure. First of all, Stephen, just in regards to the result itself, what's your impression of it? What do you think it means for Theresa May?
This is look, we've got a Tory party that's not fit for government anymore. When we're at a critical juncture that has an impact on each and every person across the United Kingdom, our critical relationship with our friends across Europe. Frankly, a Tory government riven with division is something that we can no longer afford, and they need to step to one side. And that's why the Scottish National Party, along with the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party, are calling on the Labour Party to join us in a motion of no confidence against this failed government.
But shouldn't she have this second chance to listen to what MPs have said and trying to go back to Europe and get an improvement on the backstop, the Irish backstop that's been so controversial?
Well, I was listening to Commission President Juncker today, and the member states who are fundamentally making these decisions, and they've said there is no further deal on this. Look, we're in this situation because of a Tory civil war. Those of us who are in favour of remaining in the European Union have offered compromises. Our relationship with our European partners is critical. Freedom freedom of movement, opportunities for young people, EU nationals who do us the honour of calling Scotland and elsewhere in the UK home. We cannot afford this Tory civil war. It's bigger than that. This is about people's jobs, the environment, about our future. And therefore, this government is no longer fit. It has to step to one side, and we need to take a different path.
Scotland, of course, voted to remain inside the EU, unlike England and Wales. I mean, is it simply the SNP's position that you will not settle for anything that is less than remaining inside the EU?
Well, 2 years ago, in fact, more than 2 years ago now, we offered the government a compromise. And that compromise was that we'd step outside the European Union, which we don't like. You know, being part of the European Union is very, very important for our economy, as long as we stayed part of the single market and the customs union. Now, they did not take us up on that compromise, and we moved 2 years on. And this is the problem. The Tories engage with the DUP, who aren't even representative of the whole of Northern Ireland, but they don't engage with the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats or the SNP. And therefore, I think the only way out of this is to have a second referendum on any final deal, but Remain must be on the ballot.
Stephen Gethin, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
He's
you.
the Scottish National Party's Foreign Affairs spokesman there, making it clear that he thinks that the opposition parties here, calling on the Labour opposition to essentially start a vote of no confidence in Theresa May. Now that is, and here is, we just turn around, here is, you can see the media scrum around Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's constantly been harangued by the media. He's going up the steps, I think, there, talking. He is saying tonight and making the point that a third of Conservative MPs have voted against it. Theresa May needs to do something on this withdrawal deal, needs to improve on the Irish backstop, making clear that she may have the confidence of the Conservative Party, but she doesn't have the confidence of Parliament to get that vote through, and that fundamental point, irrespective of tonight's vote, has simply not changed.
OK, Darren McCaffrey, our political editor there in Westminster during a very dramatic evening there. Thank you for now. And thank you for watching Euronews tonight. Do stay with us. We will have continuing coverage and more on that developing story following Theresa May's victory in that confidence vote after this short break. So, with the UK Prime Minister winning that vote of confidence, our team in the Cube have been hearing what real people outside Westminster have been saying. And let's head to Alex for more on this. And Alex, we've heard so much from the politicians at Westminster, but what have the public been saying?
Well, you can see here the #1 worldwide trend on Twitter is #confidence vote, referring to that confidence vote. But it is fair to say that while you've got the political pundits, we've heard from them, haven't we, lining up to give their take, the opposition politicians calling for their policy points, there are a lot of people on social media who see this entire episode as a waste of time. Bursting that bubble, let's just go through some of the comments we've been seeing online and some of the GIFs, like this one with the caption, "Waste of my time," and it shows somebody storming out of a bar. And that's definitely the sense I think people have got. A lot of people, like Isabella here, saying, just another temporary distraction from the huge mess we are in. And then look, another hashtag we're seeing a lot of as well, #Brexit shambles, #confident vote. That was a spectacular waste of everyone's time. Let's just bring you up through some other comments. That's certainly a sentiment we're seeing a lot of people saying. David France here saying, today we learned Brexit is still too toxic for anyone else to want to touch it. What a waste of time. Nothing new. So you can see, while this has got a lot of political commentators very excited, itching to give their take on it, a lot of people just looking at this as another example of political infighting at a time when everything is pretty uncertain. For example, Rosin Murphy, loved that waste of time. Some heavy sarcasm here. But also other people with a call to Theresa May here from this user saying, Mrs May needs to put the country first and deliver no deal Brexit. That's, of course, coming from the side. Many of those who voted against Theresa May would prefer to see no deal to her deal. But there's certainly a sense here that, chaos and uncertainty still remains. Again, it's this idea that nothing has changed, that the uncertainty we've all seen is still there. Let's just bring you up some other people, perhaps injecting a bit of humour into this as well, to sort of make light of it, really, because it is a very tense time. Kath here saying, well, she's a bit cross when the showing of Love Actually was delayed on the British network ITV because of this coverage of Brexit, of this vote in Theresa May. So, Sam, the sense we're getting on social, while there, of course, the streams, the feeds from politicians and commentators, there are an awful lot of people saying to us, saying on social, that was a waste of time, nothing has changed, there's big issues we need to get on with, and some of them are beyond Brexit. But please, if you're watching, send us your thoughts, send us a video, a clip, or any comment using #TheCube in your comments, and we're waiting to hear from you.
OK, Alex and the Cube team for now, thank you. And do stay with us here on Euronews tonight. We've got lots more to come after this short break. Welcome back. Let's get more now on that vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. Well, Theresa May has won that vote by 200 votes in favour. And I'm joined now in the studio by correspondent Alistair Sanford, who's here. And Alistair, just bring us right up to date on all the reaction there's been to her win.
Yes, well, it's coming in thick and fast, and we've seen some from ordinary people, from Alex over there. There's some more politicians who've been responding. Now, a lot of cabinet ministers, immediately this vote of confidence was announced, were very quick to come out in support of the Prime Minister, and they've been reacting since. Now, Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, says, he's the Finance Minister, tonight's vote of confidence in the Prime Minister is the right one. Now is the time to focus on the future. Her deal means we will honour the referendum results while safeguarding jobs and maintaining business confidence. A similar message from Brandon Lewis, the Conservative Party chairman. Glad my colleagues have supported the PM to continue to deliver for the UK, gaining more votes than in her 2016 leadership campaign. I think that's true by about one or so. We now must focus on getting the right deal for Brexit and our domestic agenda. Dissenting voice from one of the 48 plus who challenged her leadership, Owen Paterson. Very poor results for PM. Setting aside the payroll, she has secured well under half of the backbench vote. She must now listen to those of us concerned that she is failing to deliver our clear manifesto pledges to leave single market, customs union and the remit of the ECJ. These, of course, are the core issues that go to the heart of the whole wrangle about the Brexit deal. And of course, it's true that Theresa May has won the confidence vote, but that doesn't mean necessarily there is confidence in her deal, and a lot of MPs are upset still.
Yeah, lots of reaction coming through. Alistair Sanford for now, thank you. Well, let's return to Westminster, and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is there. And Darren, just bring us up to date on what people there are telling you after hearing the news that she has won that confidence vote.
Well, of course, it really depends on on who you listen to. Many of the cabinet have been out in the last, hour or so since that result came through, suggesting that this is a sign of Theresa May's strength, that she's got a higher proportion of the vote than she did when she first got elected back in 2016. Only by one, it must be said. Then, of course, we've been listening to Brexiteers who are talking about how this weakens Theresa May. It must be said that even though she won, I think, by 86 votes in the end, it wasn't terribly a comfortable victory for Theresa May. We did expect her to win this. The 200 mark was quite notable in it's what people have been talking about as the threshold she had to pass. Interestingly, she got that head on. She hit it on the nail on the head. But if it had been a couple of votes less, the narrative tonight could have been very, very different indeed. And we've heard from the Prime Minister in the last couple of minutes or so, again saying that she had listened and will continue to listen to those within her party who don't like her and who have voted against her. But ultimately, it's about delivering on Brexit. Now, I can bring in one of her MPs, a man, Bernard Jenkins. He is a Conservative MP, a leading Brexiteer, I think it's fair to describe you as. How are you this evening?
Very well.
What did you make of tonight's results?
Well, I was disappointed, obviously, and I congratulate Theresa May. She deserves credit for her victory. But I'm disappointed that the Conservative Party didn't take the opportunity to seek a new Conservative Prime Minister. The problem with Theresa's premiership, she's rather lost authority in Parliament, in the Conservative Party. The fact that 117 MPs, more than a third of her parliamentary party, voted against her has not helped. And the problems she's got in the House of Commons remain.
But isn't the fundamental point is that, yet again, you have lost? I mean, a few weeks ago you couldn't get 48 letters, then you got 48 letters, but tonight you have lost the vote.
Well, I wasn't trying to get 48 letters a few weeks ago. I reluctantly submitted a letter because I thought we ought to offer the parliamentary party the opportunity to decide whether to have a new leader or not. Well, they've decided against it. I accept that result, but it doesn't alter the problem that the Conservative Party has in Parliament. At the moment, we're trying to govern without the support of our coalition partner. We've only got a minority of the MPs. Sooner or later, there's going to be a vote of confidence in the government. Now, I will support that. Every Conservative will support that, I hope. But we might lose because we might not have the support of our coalition partner.
And so what happens next? Where do we go to next? We know Theresa May is going to go back to Brussels, but there is little sign she's going to get potentially the assurances to assure people like you on this issue of the Irish backstop?
Well, it's not me that she needs to assure on the Irish backstop. It's the DUP. If she can't get rid of the backstop and replace it with something else and get us a deal that when we get to the end of it we can actually leave the European Union, that's not what the agreement says at the moment, she's in trouble even if all the Conservative MPs support her, because it means she hasn't got a majority in Parliament.
And just very finally, we shouldn't make political predictions. You know this game better than I do or many of our viewers. Will Britain leave the European Union at the end of March? And if so, how?
Well, I think you'll see in Parliament the political paralysis persisting, and people have been cross with us for distracting the system for a couple of days to see whether we would have a leadership election in the Conservative Party. We could finish up with an early general election before we leave, or we could just see the government fall in some way, because unless she can bring back a deal that is substantially changed, I can't see how she gets out of the hole she's in, which is why I put my letter in the first place.
Bernard Jenkin, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Euronews tonight.
Thank you.
There you go, Bernard Jenkin, I think it's fair to say a leading Brexiteer who voted against Theresa May clearly tonight, says he is disappointed with the results, but ultimately, as we keep saying, the fundamentals have not changed. And just to give you a sense of what it's like here, Sam, tonight, this man is James Cleverly. He's another Conservative MP, but he is very much someone who has been supporting Theresa May during this process, someone who would argue that tonight's result is a sign that Theresa May is strengthened, and this is again a further sign of where the Conservative Party are, a party that is divided. We saw that in tonight's result, a third of Conservative MPs voting against her, but one which can't really see the way forward. Bernard Jenkins there talked about paralysis, political paralysis here at Westminster. Be in no doubt, irrespective of tonight's result, that really doesn't change.
OK, our political editor, Darren McCaffrey there in Westminster. A very busy evening there for now. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's get more on this with our correspondent, Alistair Sanford, who's been in the studio here with me all evening, following these events as they've been unfolding, Alistair. And we heard there from Bernard Jenkin that key Irish backstop issue is actually an issue across parties, that she needs to secure support for that deal to get through. How vital is that going to be for her?
Well, of course, with the classic maths in the House of Commons, with the government propped up by the Democratic Unionist Party, they're the ones everyone's been looked at, and they have been kicking up the biggest stink, of course, about the backstop, which they hate. And they hate, of course, any idea that Northern Ireland would be ripped away from the rest of the United Kingdom in any way whatsoever. But I think one thing to pick up on from what Theresa May said in her short speech, so I think we're going to go to Darren, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Alistair, just sorry to interrupt you there. Let's return back to Darren McCaffrey in Westminster. Darren.
Hello. We were talking about James a few minutes ago because we were talking to Bernard Jenkin, who says he's disappointed at tonight's results. I think it's fair to say that you have supported the Prime Minister. Not a great result for her, though, in the grand scheme of things. More than the third.
I think it's a great result when you win.
More than
a result is a result.
Well, but a third of the party have voted against her.
Well, look, I'm one of the people who has been saying since the referendum result that we absolutely have to respect the fact that 52% of the people voted in that binary referendum. And as Brexiteer, I say we need to respect that. A significantly larger proportion of people have voted in this binary result. The Prime Minister has won. She has got a mandate from the party to negotiate a good Brexit deal for the country, and also to get on with the other really important things, growing the economy, seeing that job growth, that wage growth. And I think what we are duty bound to do now, whether we voted for or against her, is respect the decision of this vote, this referendum of members of Parliament, and let her get on with the job.
But having the fundamentals not changed, which is that, people may have voted for her tonight, and we've spoken to many Conservative MPs who have, but who still do not agree with her deal.
Well, changing a leader wouldn't have changed any of those things. We have got to negotiate with the EU. She has been, is, and will continue to push for a good deal for the British people. It's not going to be easy. It was never going to be easy, but that's what she's doing. But also, we've had a vote now The vote was decisive, and I think, as I say, we are duty-bound to support her in the work that she's doing, which is getting a deal that delivers Brexit. Because one of the things that she made very, very clear when she spoke to the 1922 committee is that she is absolutely determined to deliver Brexit and will not allow the House of Commons to overturn the referendum result. And I back her 100% in that job.
And just very finally, the question then remains, what if Europe doesn't move? What if she can't achieve what she wants? It's entirely possible. What then happens? No deal?
Well, my concern, and this has always been my concern, is that there is no parliamentary majority in the House of Commons for no deal. And my fear is that they will use whatever procedural trick they can come up with to prevent Brexit happening. I think it's incredibly important we deliver on the Brexit result. I was supportive of the deal as is. If she can make it better, that's great. But I think a lot of people need to understand the choice in front of them. It's between leaving with a deal, perhaps this one, perhaps a slightly better one, or not leaving at all. And I am determined to honour the referendum result, to leave on the 29th of March, so we can get on with the other really important work that governments have to get on with.
James Cleary, thank you very much indeed. There you go, a Conservative MP, very much on the other side of this argument, someone who's been supporting Theresa May, supports her deal and thinks that essentially she should now be allowed to get on and try and improve on the deal that is currently on the table. Of course, Europe and Jean-Claude Juncker again have reiterated tonight that that deal is not open to renegotiation and it is the best possible deal. Let's, if we have time, I think we have. How are you? Good evening.
Pleasure.
What was your impression of tonight's results? In many ways, you could build it as a very damaging blow for Theresa May.
No, this was a very clear win for Theresa May. This was a very clear vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. I've known the Prime Minister for over 15 years in a variety of roles she's fulfilled. I have never known anyone with such a sense of determination, public service and a dedication to getting the right result for the British people. It's a very clear result in favour of her leadership and she's getting on with the job.
In saying that, a third of your colleagues have decided that she is not the best person for the job. That in anyone's book's quite damaging.
Well, if you look at this result compared to the result on which she was elected in 2016 as Prime Minister, she's actually got a higher share of the vote, she's got more votes. It's a clear win, it's a decisive win, and she's getting on with the job rather than focusing on any internal matters such as this. She's getting on with delivering the Brexit that Britain voted for.
And just very, very finally, what do you feel about those Brexiteers who have forced this vote tonight?
You've got to remember there is a broad church in the Conservative Party of opinion. I have a number of colleagues with a wide variety of views. This is a party that allows people to express their views. I'm disappointed this vote was forced, but they're entitled to do that. And unlike parties like the Labour Party, we don't try to shut down debate. People have the right to have that debate, and they've had it. It's been done. It's a clear and decisive victory for the Prime Minister, and we need to now get on, back her and deliver.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Again, I'm giving you a flavour there of really the split opinion within the Conservative Party. Many MPs supporting Theresa May, many who have voted against her tonight still thinking that ultimately she's not going to be able to achieve on Brexit what she desires. Pretty dramatic day here at Westminster, but Theresa May is remaining as the Conservative leader and Prime Minister of the country, having won that vote of confidence. There'll be more coverage here on Euronews throughout the evening, but now we're going to take a quick commercial break.
This is Euronews, our top story.
The result of the ballot held this evening is that the parliamentary party does have confidence.
Theresa May's political future is secure as her party votes to keep her as their leader. Hello. The ballots have been cast and counted, and now we can confirm that UK Prime Minister Theresa May has survived a no-confidence vote. The final tally shows 200 MPs supported Mrs May, retaining leadership of the Conservative Party, while 117 voted against her. Well, the Prime Minister made a statement on the result, saying she had listened to what her party was telling her.
This has been a long and challenging day, but at the end of it, I'm pleased to have received the backing of my colleagues in tonight's ballot. Whilst I'm grateful for that support, a significant number of colleagues did cast a vote against me, and I've listened to what they said. Following this ballot, we now need to get on with the job of delivering Brexit for the British people and building a better future for this country.
Well, let's head to Euronews' political editor, Darren McCaffrey, now, who's been following the story from Westminster, and he joins us now from there. And Darren, what's been the reaction to this news that she's won this confidence vote?
Well, really split reaction, really. Unsurprisingly, of course, given the fact that more than a third of a parliamentary party decided that they did not have confidence in her leadership. But we also heard from many within the cabinet and indeed other Conservative MPs believing that this strengthens the Prime Minister, that after months of rumours and speculation about a potential coup from Brexiteers, that she has managed to fight them off, essentially, but also be in no doubt that while the result was resounding to a degree, it is also slightly uncomfortable.